This is my sister, Sarah. She is 15 years old. In most ways, she is just like any ordinary sister, annoying, irritating, and at times very frustrating. She was born with Prader-Willi syndrome. It affects only 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 25,000 newborns. Prader-Willi is a rare genetic disorder caused by the deletion of the paternal chromosome 15.
Prader-Willi syndrome is a genetic disorder. It affects chromosome 15. And some of the symptoms or the conditions that go along with Prader-Willi syndrome is when a child is born, there usually is a failure to thrive, meaning they have a hard time to feed. A lot of times there's a feeding tube inserted even for the first year of life because they just are not able to take a bottle or take nutrition, so they get it through a feeding tube. They have very low muscle tone. And because of that, they can't hold their head, they don't move. They don't cry very much the first month or two because they just don't have that strength to do that. It affects lots of things as they develop. It can be delay in their development, such as crawling and sitting and walking because of the low muscle tone. It can be a delay in their development as far as learning. They have a learning difference. The main thing that it's known for is obesity. And that's because the part of the hypothalamus that tells you that you're full doesn't work. It's turned off. So once they get past the failure to thrive stage, usually around 4 or 5, then they are hungry all the time. And so you have to really monitor their diet. You have to make sure that they exercise because they don't metabolize the food. So a typical person may be able to take 2,000 calories a day. But for a child or a person with Prader-Willi, 1,000 would be a lot of calories for them because they just can't burn it. When I was pregnant with Sarah, they're waiting routine ultrasounds. And so at the routine ultrasound, the doctor saw the fact that Sarah had a club foot. And because of that, they felt like there was a big possibility that she had a genetic disorder, trisomy 18, which is deadly. Pretty much every child with it dies. So
we already knew something wasn't
may
right.
be wrong. So my option was to do nothing, just wait until she was born to find out if that's what she had, or to have an amniocentesis, which is what we chose to do, just to see, so we could be prepared. We wouldn't have terminated the pregnancy. Nothing would have been different except that we would have been prepared. So we had the amnio, and it came back normal.
Because unfortunately it only tests for a very narrow range of disorders.
And because we didn't know that at the time, we thought, well, it came back normal, so it was just a case of a club foot, and that is something that can be fixed. So there wasn't a lot of concern after that. Things that were different is she didn't move as much in utero as her brothers did. But she was also smaller, and the doctors didn't really seem concerned about that. So again, we didn't expect there to be anything upsetting or wrong when she was born. So it was still a surprise. And like Kevin said, the amnio only checks for certain things. And at that point, I didn't realize that. And because of the way that she has Prader-Willi syndrome, she doesn't actually have a deletion. She has 2 pieces of the maternal piece. So when you do a chromosome check, it looked like it was okay, but it wasn't. When we got our diagnosis of Prader-Willi syndrome for my daughter, emotionally, mentally, it was crazy. I was really distraught because, as I said earlier, you have all these plans when you have a child. You kind of in your mind have their future planned out, that they can go and do anything and everything possible that they want to do. But when you get a diagnosis like Prader-Willi syndrome, all that changes because it's an unknown future. You don't know what lies ahead as far as what she'll be, if she'll be able to get married, have children. You don't know all those things at that time. And so that kind of made me sad for her and for us, for everybody. So that was, there. And fortunately, I had some support. But also during that time, we had lots of medical bills. We had medical tests after tests, doctor's appointments, therapy, all kinds of things. So it became a financial strain to us too. So I not only had the emotional end of it, we had the financial end of it, which when you have financial stresses, that affects your marriage, along with when you have a child with special needs. Supports that were that I had in place that I was very fortunate to have was two of the main ones were my parents, other than my husband, of course, but my parents. They were there as a rock. They helped with running my other three kids to their practices and to school and different things like that when I needed to be taking care of Sarah to doctor's appointments and things like that. They also were able to, when Sarah got a little older, to even take her to some of her therapies. But more than just the running and the caring and all that, they were there to support me, to love on Sarah and the whole family. So that was a huge support. I was fortunate to have two brothers and their families. Chris is my one brother and his wife Colleen. And the other brother was Joseph, and Sandra, his wife. And both of them have been tremendous supports through prayer and calls and being together and just lifting us up in prayer and just being great supports. So I have a loving family. One special person was also my grandmother, which is Sarah's great grandmother. Her name, we called her Granny. Granny was a prayer warrior. She prayed. And I believe that's why Sarah has done so well, too. She is a direct, we always say she had a direct line to God. Since then, she's passed away. And I know that she looks down at us and is happy that Sarah's doing so well. Another wing of support that was very important to us and still is a group of parents who also have children with Prader-Willi. Because you can talk to anybody and they'll say, oh, I know how you feel. I know how you feel. Well, nobody knows how I feel about having a child with Prader-Willi other than another parent who has a child with Prader-Willi. So at Sarah's diagnosis, I was fortunate to get in contact with another mom. Her name's Rachel, and she has a daughter, Erin, who's a few years older than Sarah. So I had the opportunity to see a child older than my daughter, to see how well she was doing, that she does have a life and would have a brighter future. But not only that, as trials or complications through their health or issues that came up, we can talk to each other, we can give support to each other, or refer doctors or agencies or things that we may need help with that the other parent has gone through. So we wanted to raise money for research. So here in Louisville, with my family and several other families with children, we started having fundraisers, and we created a group. And then eventually that small grassroots group of parents turned into an international organization that raises billions of dollars for research, which is pretty cool. So within the last 15 years, this agency is called the Foundation of Prader-Willi Research. It also has the United States location, it has one in Canada, the UK. It's just, and they have raised so much money for research. And the research that has been done within the last 10 years has benefited our children. There's not a cure, but there has been things that we have found to help with some of the conditions that come along with Prader-Willi. But anyway, to go back to the support, there's nothing like having your faith in God, your family, and support of other families who know what you're going through and that you can go together. My family extends to not only my immediate family like I've talked about, but also my best friend Debbie that I grew up with, her family, we consider family too, has been a great.
Alright, what it was like to grow up with a sister with Prader-Willi syndrome. Well, it was different from the very beginning. when we found out we were kids, and didn't know what it meant then, but it was definitely different. Had to handle her differently. Everything had to be special for her. At the very beginning, she had inverted feet, and she had a cast on her from the very get-go, so it was different. I guess I was sweeter, and Mom reminds me all the time when I would read to her. When we were very young, I'd hold her. We had to be more gentle because she was more fragile than normal babies. But growing up, I would help her with homework sometimes, and she was going to school. Early on, she seemed like a normal kid, and now she's becoming a teenager, and just like a teenage girl. She has teenage girl issues, has attitude, and gets on my last nerve sometimes, but I still help her with her homework, and gotta be patient with her. And I'm a school teacher now, so it's kind of easier to have that patience, but it was tough first. But it's hard sometimes, but it's worth it.
When I was younger, and still a little bit today, I always thought because my sister was special needs, my mom devoted more attention to her than she did to me. She may be different, but she is just like any other teenage girl.
Hi, I am Sarah. I'm 15 years old. Almost 16 years old?
Almost. I know. What sport do you do at school?
Oh, yeah.
On Tuesdays and Thursdays, what do you do?
Archery?
Archery. Did you have a big surgery last year?
Yes.
What did you have done? Look at Jacob and tell him.
A big back surgery and
What they put on in your back?
rods,
Rods
screws in them.
with a lot of screws. Did it make you taller?
Yes.
Yes. And straighter.